What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Dave B. You're watching Dave B on TV, where we go beyond the everyday bullshit that people be consuming on a day-to-day basis. And we outside again. I don't know what it is about this weather. Like when it gets to the fall time, that's when I actually want to be outside the most on some crazy shit. Like I like when it's a little cold. I like when I appreciate all days, like from the sunniest day to the gray days, days where it's gray outside, it's grayscale and shit like that. It's like a different vibe. It's mellow, it's a lot of reflection energy. And in particular, we dealing with a lot of reflection energy off the rip right now. Us being in Scorpio, whenever we're in a water transit, this heavy reflection energy, we all need to be in a space where we could dive within ourselves and sort out some of these emotional issues that we have, because here's something that the topic of this video is talking about being your own worst enemy. We don't realize how serious that is. Certain things that we keep on our mind, in our space, on our heart, and on our mind, all of these things determine courses of action, that we take. Because see, if we look at things, like we got to see things come from internally and then it's external. So based upon the space you in, you're going to choose to move about the world in whatever way that is, and see that reverberates. You start to interact with different things in the world, and these things react to you. And this is how we co-create the world around us. And we all agree on this field of reality, right? This world that we've created together. And that's how we influence each other. We expand and contract, and we influence others to expand in different ways, and then they react to that. And then they put out what they put out in the world. Your true impact on the world is based upon your ritual and spell, aka what you choose to do with your body. And everything you do with your body is filtered from or directed from that space that you created your mind from. And this is why, when we look at societal norms and things of that nature, this is when a situation where we have people constructing our minds for us, right? And this is where you get, people who don't, you can tell when someone doesn't have their own mind, because the only thing out of their mind and from their space is all of the desires that have been laid out in front of us. This is like people who, they get around you, they start talking like a robot. Everything they understand about the world came from some kind of Bible or some kind of religious text that somebody else wrote. Their morality system is solely based on what somebody else has taught them to be right and wrong, and it puts them in a situation where it's like, from their space, you can't get no real authenticity. All you get is like what was on TV last night. See, these are the individuals that you have conversations, like microwave type conversations, like, microwave meals. You pop them in the microwave, there's no real nutrients in that bitch. It's just a bunch of flavoring, So it's like, yeah, it might satisfy a little craving here and there. It might, fill your stomach up, but, you're going to have to use the bathroom real bad in a couple hours, It's not going to be anything that nourishes you. And this is people's minds, this is the microwave conversation, a microwave mind that gets established, or really I should say manufactured, and this is people who, again, they don't see anything outside of the education system. These are people who are designed to be robots in a sense, but then there's the other individuals, people on our spiritual path, right? When we talk about spirituality, all it is individuality, your individual ways of going about the world and expansion, your journey. Your spiritual journey is just your individual journey, and your individual journey is all about you as a spirit, right? In this reality, expanding and contracting, right? So you expanding. You're trying to learn how to be a better magician down here, aka you're trying to develop your own thought and your own feeling. This is what we're all trying to do. We're creating our own thought and our own feelings. We're conjuring up our own magic, right? We're trying to bend reality to look like the spaces that we came from in past lives, right? And these past lives are connected to, karmic lessons that we've been learning for eons and eons, things that go beyond just this lifetime of ours, and these be the things that we fear the most, that we dream about, things that we hate in this world, that we look at and we have an extreme emotional reaction, even though it might be the very first time that we even experiencing it in this lifetime though. But that energy signature came from somewhere else. It's like we have to piece all these different things together, right? But see, in the process, right, you are here to also deal with your own demons. This is a demonic type world, and by demonic, I don't mean something to be afraid of, because demon just means a lower vibration of things, a lower vibration that's based on what, like when we talk about animalistic natures or survival mode. This is where we act in the third dimension, survivor mode. So you get a lot of individuals with the microwave mind. That's the only thing they can think about. I'm hungry. How am I going to survive? This is when you get individuals that are cutthroat, willing to throw you under the bus for some kind of monetary gain, willing to stab you in the back and misdirect you based upon their insecurities, to project their problems, their demons onto you. And their demons be their fears, and a lot of times, see, it gets tricky too, because even when we look at the previous generation, see, everybody with Pluto and Scorpio, and Pluto in the early degrees of Pluto and Sag, because like Pluto and Sag generation, late 1995, or really I say 1995 to about what, couple years up, you know what I'm saying, but probably to about 2000, right? Chances are you have Pluto and Sag in that very early degree, where technically you're on the cusp. So you're carrying a lot of the themes that, again, the 90s kids was pushing, right? When you talk about generational themes. So you share a little bit of the ideology, or when we're talking about Pluto, we're talking about transformation. We're talking about things that transform or dictate the transformation, or initiate the transformation of a generation. This is like, Pluto is best described as like, associated with, like, for instance, trauma, right? I don't think trauma is the best word, because it kind of has a different, it's talking about those, but for lack of better words, it actually is a pretty good word, because when we consider trauma, right, we're talking about things that deeply impacted us emotionally, that may have incited fear and created obsession and cycles that we look at as, almost fight or flight, where we either had to take power control over it, or it took power control over us, right? And taking power control over it is like when you get situations like, you turn your trauma into your success story. What I'm saying? You took what happened to you, and you learn how to transmute it into something creative, something that can impact others in a positive way. And you learned how to, in the process, also heal yourself. So even with that deep pain, you are able to establish a better way to see the world. When we talk about the negative end, these is like when people didn't take power control over it. These are the people who run to different things, such as addiction, run to certain things that ease the pain, and they can laugh it off and shrug it off. But these are things that they have not yet dealt with and gained power control over within their own mind, within their own psyche. So this becomes a issue later on in life. This is childhood. Again, when we think about our childhood, things that happened to us when we were vulnerable, and everything we took as measures to never feel vulnerable again, these things are a lot of times our Pluto experiences. So getting to what I'm getting at, right? When we talk about Pluto being associated with trauma, see, the Pluto and Scorpio generation had to deal with parents or situations, right? Because it might not have came from a parent, but it's kind of weird, because Pluto does have a lot of links to childhood in a lot of ways, because it's like I said before, it's when we were most vulnerable, when we didn't have anything to really look at for protection. We're most vulnerable as children, and we are left to whoever our parents are to guide, protect, and play those roles. But the truth is, like, as individuals, as children, like, you at the same time, you can't protect them from everything. So it's like Pluto is something that we can't really escape, because even you trying to protect your children and trying to shelter them, again, they even when you're like, when someone is sheltered, they were overprotected from those transformative situations. But the thing about those transformative situations, those are character defining things. That's why Pluto is like an outer planet like that. These are character defining things that we have to go through, transform through, right? And that's the whole thing about being in this world, is like, it's all about transformation. It's all about expansion and growth. That's really what it is growth. But those traumatic situations, I mean, even out in nature, we see different instances where, there's a shedding that needs to happen. With snakes, they got to lose skin. They have to completely lose skin. Caterpillars got to go into a whole cocoon. And I think even in there, I forgot what actually happens, because they had like a video or something online talking about, what really happens. Because it's not just they get into a cocoon and they come out like a butterfly. It's like inside that cocoon, they basically really die or something like that. Like they decay, or they, again, just something that would be perceived as a loss that actually contributes to the transformation into you becoming who you need to be in that next phase. Without that intense negative, or that, because Pluto isn't always necessarily negative, but without that intensity and those deep feelings and those things that went through that turn out that you can consider traumatic, right? Without those experiences, you wouldn't be aware of the things you need to be aware of. You wouldn't have the passion to actually get up, and the power, you know what I'm saying? Because that's really, there's power in those experiences. Now, it's not for us to go chase and seek those experiences. This is when you get reckless individuals who, even through that, is a certain obsession with themselves that they don't even quite understand. Like, they have an obsession with hurting themselves. It goes deep, because from that end, when you chase and seek these experiences, it's not for us to go chase and seek, because I there's some people who really think like that too, who try to seek out traumatic experiences or want to hurt and inflict that on other people, and that just points to another situation where you haven't quite dealt with your own pain. So now you're trying to either inflict pain, or you feel as though on some level you deserve that pain, so you go out and seek it to avoid yourself from actually healing, because that is a two-part process. It's you go through it, but the healing process, transmutation, is really a three-part, because it's like from that transmutation still is an initiation into something new. And that's kind of when we get to transition to what you would consider Sag. But at the same time, it's like, to keep it simple, it's just like, this is that Pluto energy. But when we talk about, what I wanted to get at about generations, is that like Scorpio, Pluto generation is like, we went through the depths, like our traumatic energies went in that Scorpio vein, where we got to see a lot of things behind the scenes. And so we're becoming adults who are looking to bring about that transformation. And see, Sagittarius Plutos, they're here to correct it and adjust it, because what we experienced from our parents was, parents who wasn't really there for us when we were going through those scary moments, weren't really able to protect us. They really wasn't. I think that from that generation, because that generation was raised by a bit of the Pluto Virgos and Pluto Libras. I think that we got to see, we seen a lot of the if you want to say, not to say, like, we experienced a lot of the situations of seeing through the veil, like where previous generations were kind of just going with the flow when it came to what the government was up to and what the system was talking about, right? They were, revolutionaries at that time, but the revolution was still trying to be done within the system. It was still trying to be done within programs that were government regulated. They didn't peep the witchcraft the same way that Pluto and Scorpio did. Pluto and Scorpio, we didn't even get a taste of you know what I'm saying, the whatever dream that was. We didn't even really get a taste of it. Some of us did, earlier on, but we seen right through that. We seen the depths of that, and then going into the transition of Pluto and Sag, it's like, so by seeing the depths of that, we had to transform it. We had to take certain measures into our own hands and really, again, for better or for worse, because you see what's been transpiring that the last couple years, last few years. It's like, damn, this, but you look at where we are now, and it's like, okay, now we get that Pluto and Sag, and right now Pluto is in Capricorn, right? So Pluto and Capricorn is here to build on top of what we set as far as a new path. But the Pluto and Sag, like, that generation is, very different, very wild, but they're here to still correct a lot of those transformations. It's like a free-for-all almost right now. We kind of cracked into a whole different paradigm a little bit. That's what Pluto and Scorpio did. They pushed the paradigm. It was all about like kind of breaking through a lot of those set in stone traditions that were put forth at front. It was like, okay, nah, like that isn't working. We seen the trauma in that. We seen the result of that, and there was a dark truth to all that shit that we were like, nah, like it's more behind the scenes. We had to break through that shit. And then Pluto and Sag is here to explore all these new possibilities and then string it back together. And that like what I was saying about Pluto and Sag, that's kind of on the cusp. You know, y'all seen it. Y'all just seen like, oh yeah, they was right. You know, that shit was fucked up and we can't ever go back to that again. We got to transform into something new. And so it's taking that, having the wisdom and knowledge of what was before and putting forth correction for what needs to happen. You know, and correction in the sense of just setting up situations where, you know, there's more access to different ways of seeing. There's more, you know, when it, so the trauma that's going to ensue from the Pluto and Sag is like, you know, situations where their transformations comes from having to explore. So having to kind of be out there without any idea of what they're going to do, but just being in the experience and almost like making it up as they go. You know, we had to, or I don't want to say we, because I'm kind of in that middle too. Like I'm 95, so it's like, it's like that what 0 degree Sag, you know what I'm saying, Pluto Sag. But again, it's like, but that Pluto Sag influence, and those who did have the Pluto Sag, they had to fight. They had the parents that they had to actually actively rebel from, or they had the pieces of themselves when it came to those deep moments where they weren't protected, and they had, you know, they had to actually come to grips to kill a lot of that shit. And when it came to, you know, overarching societal norms, they had to be the pioneers to put death to certain things that just wasn't working. And even fighting through and transforming through the extremes of, like, when we talk about cancel culture or political correctness, you know, going to extremes, but then having to bring it back and say, well, we got to kill that, because even now we see the problem with trying to move forward with something as you know, something like that. We seen how extreme it can get, and that seems to be the pattern too, with now Pluto and Sag generation being the ones starting to kind of like come up and move things around, right? Being in those positions of authority. It's like a lot of extremes and then having to put death to that extreme, and then having to put death to that. Like, oh, okay, oh, political correctness, we should be overly political correct. Oh wait, hold on, that's bullshit, so let's kill that. No, now we need to be super accepting of all viewpoints. But then we're gonna see, like, even going all these different places is like we it's always a extreme energy based upon, again, someone down the line feeling suppressed, someone down the line feeling like they didn't get their piece of shine or exposure, or somebody feeling like they're not being seen and recognized. So an extreme has to be done, and again, this is necessary for the flow of life, because, or I don't say the flow of life, that's kind of dramatic, but the flow of like what we're here to do as a society, as people, as beings interacting with each other. It's like, you know, because we need to, things like the internet, it made people aware of many different ways of being, you know what I'm saying? So when it expanded our awareness of what was possible, it pushed forward notions of all possibilities, you know what I'm saying? Through the internet, we got to see what people's slang is over there on the other side of the world, or how people in this country are living, you know what I'm saying? And then we got to add on that. So we got to, you know, it's like the information that's coming through, and a lot of all these outer planets, like, this is how they all link together. Because when we start talking about information and those exchanges, you know, then we're talking about Uranus, and then we're talking about Neptune, about like how our imaginations began to link. Because even with the internet, Neptune and Capricorn type shit, we are all building on each other's imagination at some point. We're all building on top of, like, what I didn't know was possible, I now know is possible. So there's more things that can be built from there. There's more things that we can advance with, technology wise, or, you know, whatever may have you. But This kind of like went all around the world for real, but the real point of the conversation that I wanted to say is like talking about, you know, us being our own worst enemy, because, you know, as we even look at these outer planets, now let's bring it back to us as individuals. It's like, you know, we oftentimes become our own worst enemy, looking at everything outside of us as able to hurt us, but we don't realize that, see, you knowing yourself, right? You know all your weaknesses, you know all your vulnerabilities. So it's like when we don't know how to direct and move our minds, when we don't know how to look at the macro, but then come back to the micro, right? If we don't know how to move within these different worlds that we create for ourselves, because these imaginations we have, these are worlds, and we jump into them, and then we start to create feelings in that space, and those feelings become things that we hold those emotions. These become our emotional stance on things, and a lot of times we associate these emotional stances with our morality and, like I said, our ways of being and interacting in the world. I say all that about the generational shit because when we talk about even us moving forward as individuals in society, right, it's like, you know, looking at older generations, past generations, and understanding what they didn't understand, and seeing what they didn't see. You know, this is where we at right now, because, you know, again, Pluto is currently in Capricorn, right? That means that we just got out of well, it's been in Capricorn for a minute. You know, it's like, I like to think things in terms of like, when we talk generations, we have to also understand the story being told through that. And as individuals of my generation, right? You know, or just in general, Pluto, like by default, if you Pluto in Scorpio to Pluto in Sag, you in a position right now where you either around your Saturn return, just had it, or you around your Saturn return, just had it, or a couple years after it, right? So this is like the 35 to about, I'd even say what, maybe 20, like maybe 18. You could fairly say 18, right? Through that age gap, it's like we are the ones in the position in that summertime portion of our lives. When you hit 18, right, you're still a young adult, but as you come in at like the mid 20s, late 20s, 30s, 35, even 40, really, you still you it's like prime time. That's the time to like live in the summertime. You know what I'm saying? Like 18, you just getting out of spring for real. You know what I'm saying? 20, like when you get, you know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is like we have the most energy and the most you know, our minds are moving at a rate that our body can somewhat still keep up with. Even if you think you old, like you got to get out of that mindset of thinking you old. A lot of people just think old based upon, again, not taking care of your mind. When you take care of your mind, your physical can keep up with everything. You know what I'm saying? Yo, keep up what it needs to keep up with. And you know, again, that's how you keep a young, fresh mind and a young, fresh external. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, even if you do got certain things going left with your body, it's like you still got enough energy to do what you need to do. You know, but my point is, there's still enough energy in us where we got to be the ones to establish new things. We're here. We're in those positions, or at least putting ourselves in those positions, and we got to be thinking ahead. We got to be thinking of what was the push from our generation and the knowledge that we bring into the current, because we already experienced what that was, and that's what we're carrying as a generation, as trauma or situations that we need to deal with and there's two sides: the micro, where it's like you as an individual have to deal with your Pluto, your traumas, not always necessarily childhood shit, but shit that impacted you at times where you were extremely vulnerable, and that you've committed and dedicated yourself to never feeling again. And the only way to do that is by taking power control. These are deep insecurities, deep feelings that, again, go so unnoticed, because even I noticed, like, you can have a conversation with your parents, right? And it's like all children have to come to a point where they see their parents and realize, like, damn, y'all niggas ain't know what to do either. Y'all was just as confused as we are. And so the way y'all disciplined us, the way y'all thought it was right to do certain things that hurt us deeply, that you could never understand, you have to also understand and be able to take another step further than that, where you don't define yourself or allow that shit to define you. This individual was just as fucked up as you are, but here's the difference: you are aware at a much younger state. Now, this don't mean you have to forgive everything, because sometimes, again, people hurt us in ways that we can't forgive, but at least liberate your spirit to not allow that to define you. You know what I'm saying? You can have whatever stance you have, because again, different people have different experiences. I've seen some shit, or I've heard, you know what I'm saying? Because I may not have experienced some of the more extreme versions of what I'm talking about, but for those of you who have, I understand, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not about having to embrace everybody with love, because that ain't even all the answer, and when I say like that, it's like the truth is, man, and it is deep. It's like, it's not all about love either. You know what I'm saying? It's about knowing, because love ain't shit but another tool, another energy to use. Not everybody can live their life just on love. Now, you have to use this to some capacity, at the very least, loving yourself. But as far as when people be like, oh, it's all love, like for real, like only thing we need is love, it's like, it's a dangerous line to get into that ideology sometimes, because it's like that's good for putting yourself in a lighter space, right? Because it's like, you do got to have some form of love, right? But that love is like what people mean. Well, I don't even want to get into what people mean, because again, who knows what people mean? Everybody different. But it's just like, sometimes you got to understand. It's like, don't just get caught in one way of looking at the world, because it's not all love. Sometimes it is a little bit of hate. Sometimes it is a little bit of negativity. Sometimes it is a little bit of frustration, and it is a little bit of all these different other energies that we have. Sometimes it is a little bit of something else. So it's not all one thing. And moving about the world as if it is, you always put yourself in a position where the last thing you want to do is be unprepared esoterically, meaning that you lived your whole, it's like you only work on one chakra. You don't want to be unprepared spiritually. It's like you only work on one chakra, and that's the only one that work efficiently. But you got to understand, like, that's like a person who called themselves being a repair person, but you only got one tool on you. You only got one wrench. What if it's a situation you need a screwdriver? You fucked. That shit don't work as efficiently, and you wonder why. It's like, no, so it's not all one thing. It's not all love, but it's about understanding your individuality and what you need, what percentages of love you actually need. Love in your life, loving yourself is all important, but what percentage is that really your focus? Because it could be somebody who don't need to focus so much on it all being love. No, for you, it's more majority being angry. You need to actually, you here to create chaos. And again, it don't have to be toxic. You don't create that in people's lives, but you create chaos in the sense of your journey and whatever space you came from. Your journey, your story is through your art, through whatever it is that you use. Again, it don't have to be, because again, think about people who create chaos to help other people. You know what I'm saying? People who are here to take the jobs where they have to kick in the door and get everybody on the floor so they can get somebody else to safety or something like that. Somebody, it's like, it's all different ways to live out here. But getting back to my actual point, the wind moving. Moon in Gemini, it's windy, a lot of air. But here's the thing. My point was, as a generation, we should be looking at ourselves and what we went through and understanding that energy, right? Pluto and Scorpio, like transforming. We were seeing behind the scenes. We're here to place new expansion in the world, give new access to different places that people can go and travel with mentally and free themselves with. And then we got to consider the generation after. Our children are going to be the Pluto and Caps. Pluto and Caps are here to build. So we need to make sure that whatever we lay out on the table, we get all corners of the perspective, a new perspective, and we give it to our children for them to construct. And we also help them along the way understand, again, because that's where their trauma is going to come through. Things not being structured, things not being realistic. You know what I'm saying? So we need to make sure that in our experiences, right, if you a parent, you got to be thinking in terms of like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Again, we, as a parent, again, I'm not one yet, so I don't want to just be speaking out of my ass. I understand, you know what I'm saying? It's just different, but at the same time, I'm speaking from a place of just knowing, understanding, you know, the flow of life, or you know, whatever it is, the message that's coming through is just that consider, because again, as a parent, you automatically gonna do things that you can't, like I was saying earlier, you can't protect a child from everything. You can't really protect the child from shit. All you can really do is be the best example, but you know, provide the things for them that they need, or what you can provide. And then again, the best thing you could really do for them is handle your own bullshit, so that you can be an example for them to be themselves too, and be free enough to be themselves. And and again, the better you construct your mind, the better you become an example. And then it doesn't become a thing where, you know, again, how you choose to discipline and go about things, it's like all of that, we seen what that was. We seen that from our parents. So again, we here to transform. Take with that as you may. We here to expand, learn new ways. You know what I'm saying? Learn new ways. So take what you didn't like, and let's expand on that. And let's put depth to shit that we know just don't work. A lot of times the issue comes from you just giving up. You know what I'm saying? And again, allowing the world to put pressure on you to just be like, you know, there is no other way. And you give up, you be like, man, there is no other way. But at the same time, it's like every situation is different, because it's like we all gotta be free to do what we need to do and what we see fit. But that's just understanding the cycle of things. Even when you look at your parents, like some of them just had to come to the conclusion like that's all they had in them, you know. So it's like, don't be out here holding too much, you know, because the point of it all is like you can't hold too much. You have to let a lot of these things go. You have to let a lot of these things flow. That's also the thing, the journey with Pluto. It's like some things you just gotta let go, and that's Pluto's conclusion. Is like, transform it, take power control over it, or let it go, you know, and or, because at the same time, even when you take power control over something, now that it's over, let it go. You don't have to dominate everything and obsess and abuse others that did you before you knew how to hold your own. You know what I'm saying? That leads you down a path of wanting revenge, and then, you know, drive you crazy. Dedicate your whole life to another story. You know, you center your life around whoever you try to get revenge on. And again, a lot of times, the whole time you fighting yourself. And here's the thing. This is back to the main point, is that we are our own worst enemy. There is nobody externally that can whoop your ass, right? Now, don't mean you can't get your ass whooped. I'm just saying, when I'm talking spiritually right here, you know, when we talk about, you know, putting your mind out in the world and being yourself, right? There's nothing outside of you that you need to fear, that you should be worried about, that can beat your ass esoterically, like yourself. Like, you can, like, you gotta really see yourself. Like, you like, bruh, when it really comes down, you being your individual self, you gotta trust that you can hold your own for real, because that's you having spiritual strength, right? When you know yourself and you one of a kind, boom, you out in the world, there's nothing out here that can defeat you. But one thing that will always beat your ass, one thing that will always defeat you is yourself. Because yourself know all your weak points. It know everything that you're vulnerable about. And the worst part is, it's relentless. It won't even let up if you let it. If you let it creep in and get some shots in, it won't stop hitting you. And what I mean is, like, when you allow an intrusive thought that is negative towards what you want to manifest for yourself, negative to how you want to see yourself, right? That fear and anxiety, it doesn't let up. And until we put death to that shit, we can't get out of that thought loop. And like I was saying in the very beginning, these different things that we allow to chase us and beat us up internally, it be ourselves. And like I said, ourselves, we know ourselves too well. That's your shadow right there. This is the shadow work. This is like that's your reflection. Like, that shit know everything about you. It know what you about to do before you even do it. That's what I mean by it will beat your ass every time. It will beat your ass every time if you allow it. You are your own worst enemy in all cases. So, like, what I mean is, like, there is no enemy. For real. Like, when you really out here living and you being yourself, again, spiritual path, you have to realize, like, there is no enemy out here. It's just me and myself. and it's myself. So it's like, and you can't win that battle traditionally. Like, you can't win that battle by fighting and running. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you put up a fight to control your mind, but that's the thing. Once you control your mind and you start to realize how to move your spaceship, it's like it's not a fight no more. It's like you now on the same team. You have to get on the same team with your shadow. Like, that's really what I'm getting at. It's like you have to start to talk to yourself to understand some of the needs and the things that you've been telling yourself that's been getting under your skin. Like, you know what I'm saying, the lies you tell yourself. It's like we tell ourselves so many lies. We need to start to understand why we've told ourselves these things, because a lot of times, like I was just saying, you know, a lot of times these be things that we've carried over from Pluto, from things that happened when we were in a state of not knowing what was going on. You know, that's the thing too about Pluto and Scorpio. We were in a lot of situations and scenarios where no one knew where we were at. We were a child that stumbled into a place that, you know, we ain't had no business, a little too young, and it was dark and no one else knew where we were. And we had to figure it out from there. Some of us created light, some of us found a light at the end of the tunnel, and others of us just embraced that darkness. You know what I'm saying? And some knew how to manage the darkness and maneuver through, other people didn't. And then moving into the Pluto and Sag is like we came from, we either, because it's the cuspy energy, right? It's talking about what I was, that age group I was just talking about, but it's the cuspy energy where, like I said, it comes from those three or four thought spring points. You either created your own light, you either seen a light, somebody else's light at the end of the tunnel that's like taking somebody else's ideology that saved you. It's the Jesus Christ people. Oh God, he saved me. You know what I'm saying? People who clung to religion, or even you know, anything. You know, even atheism is a form of like religion for real. It's like everyone clinging to, oh, let me cling this, let me cling to that. Oh, let me cling to conspiracy and logic. Let me cling to this. Let me cling to Carl Jung. You know what I'm saying? Let me cling to Plato. You know, all these different people who cling to philosophers. You know, you either did that or you never could find your spark. And you were either a person that was meant to be in that darkness, and you learn how to maneuver. This is like people who, again, you part of the people who seen the trauma, seen the darkness in the world, and you made a way for yourself. Like, but you still in darkness. You know, it still get to you. It's still deep. But you, again, on some level, you was meant to be in the darkness, because some people are meant to be in the darkness and move and do miracles there. You know, that don't mean negative. It just means you very worldly. You see the world. This is like artists. You know, artists who seen a lot and who can articulate on it. And again, like like for instance, like you think of a artist, a musician whose music is dark and shit like that. Like who can I say, man? Because I don't want to say who I know y'all thinking about, but like, you know, even we think about like even like early Tyler the Creator, right? That darkness and shit like that. Even like a lot of artists who talk about drugs and killing and shit like that. It's like, even that, like, it might be dark, but there was still beauty in that. And that beauty was their own truth. And them maneuvering there, they helped other people who were in those dark spaces figure out their way. You know what I'm saying? That's why that's why I don't demonize music. Like, you know, oh, this music is killing the people. It's like, no, people kill people. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people get influenced, you know, they got their own shit. But as far as like the music, I'm not saying it don't influence you, because it do be in your psyche. And again, it all depends on the intentions and the where it's coming from, because a lot of that music did lead to a lot of the tragedies and things of that nature, and the culture moving in a certain way. But those were the voices that were corrupted by the system that they was in. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the thing, when you don't people who are in their own darkness, this is the other way, where people who are in that darkness but don't know how to maneuver it. So that's why I say 4. You know, you had the first 3, this is the last one. Didn't find that spark in that darkness, right? And that darkness just so accumulating all the thoughts of the world, and but they got control over. They didn't take power control over being in that darkness. They got controlled. So these are the people who signed the deals, who made the music that did lead to the killing, that led to them wanting to kill themselves. Led to them taking on a lot of that darkness and not knowing how to cope with it, getting in too deep and stuff, that type of energy. So it's like, really, that's where that Pluto and Sag energy came. They started to go. And see, now Pluto in Capricorn, again, the kids of this generation right now, the kids being born right now, they are being given the bricks. This is they're born in chaos. They're born in all this shit not making any sense. No one knows what to do right now. So the kids are, again, having to be a lot more responsible. Kids are having to put a lot of the pieces together themselves. And so if you want to be a positive impact on the youth, we got to be looking at them and saying, okay, how can we at least make this make some sense for them? Or how can we allow them the freedom and give them the courage to build something that will make sense? Because they're going to be the ones who make sense out of this shit. And again, when we talk about some of the more grander schemes of things, like where this world is going and how we can change the world for real, soul group shit, changing politics, business, entertainment, creating these new ways of going about these things, business, entertainment, politics, education, and what's the last one? Y'all know the last one. Y'all could put them in the comments. But my point is, to push forward that initiative, we have to look at them and say, okay, what tools can we give them? Because again, like I was saying before, the thing about it is, we are all going through our own shit. And see, that's something that generations previous that I was kind of pointing out is like, you might want to blame your mom, your dad for them not being aware of certain things. But that's the thing. We are the generation who seen behind the scenes and got a little deeper and then went into Sag and then got enlightened about it and started to actually be able to see the shapes and forms of what wasn't working. This is why all of us are therapists, experts. Everybody on TikTok is an expert. That's a it might be annoying, but that's a good thing. Because that means that there are people in the world who took what they seen and are speaking up about what wasn't working about it. The thing about it is, we need to get more, real, even conversations about, again, because now even conversations that have been getting tired, like men versus women. We seen what the bullshit did to the family structure. We seen what didn't work in that. We seen also where individuals getting too lost in these relationships. So it's like we seen the darkness. So it's like we here to paint a new picture, essentially. Paint a new picture and push forward and expand in new ways that, again, we can't blame the previous generations for. But like that, my point or my gift or my message right here is just to be like, look, this is how we got to look at life going forward, because that's the thing about the real generational wealth is like, deal with your shit. Because people think generational wealth just should be about money and resources, and on one level it should. You need to leave some resources now, and we peep that now, right? But let's take it even further. Because the real wealth is through the mind. So we need to make sure we leaving better thought forms for our children to jump in. And even if we aren't parents, just us being adults in this age, you got to look at yourself and see yourself as an authority. If you around your Saturn return, you are at the age you need to start telling people shit. You need to start letting people know what you think. You need to start speaking your mind. You need to start getting your shit off. And again, you ain't got to be overboard about it. You ain't got to be an overnight celebrity about it. You ain't even got to run the social media about it. Just people in your life, because whether you are online and being seen and making videos or not, you are still a influence in this world from around the people you're around. On a small scale, even if no one knows you and you just somebody watching on YouTube right now on a farm, and you got like 3-4 friends and like two nieces, 2 nephews, like you an influence to them. Your mind matters to them. So if you know what I'm saying, if you in a position or you at that age and you at that group, you gotta understand that's where you at. And yeah, it's about to rain, so I'm about to jump out of here. But yeah, we all got a role to play. You know what I'm saying? And so we know the world is fucked up. We know the world got problems, and no, we're not gonna change it overnight. But these are the steps that get us there. You know what I'm saying? And it starts with us peeping game, like with ourselves. Because like I said, it's like, get your mind right. The better you get your mind, the better you become an influence. Regardless, you don't even have to try. It's when we try too hard and try to teach lessons to kids that it gets, distorted, because then the kids like, wait a minute, no, that's not true, because the space you was delivering it from might not have been a real space. And sometimes we gotta make the messages. It's not about being all nice and cheery and shit like that, but again, it's just a matter of knowing yourself. And because when you do it from however you need to do it, it's gonna come across how it needs to. So it's not about trying to I gotta be super nice, or I gotta be super loving and compassionate. No, sometimes you gotta hit somebody upside the head. Don't matter. Your style is your style, but the essence of it is still the same. You need to go within yourself and address some of this shit. And yeah. So, we are our own worst enemy. So just understand that, when you are allowing yourself, when you're in a negative state, an extreme state, and you looking at people outside of you as they're the enemy, you're always wrong. You know what I'm saying? Not to say other people externally can't be meaning you harm and threatening you. Okay, yeah, you got to handle what you got to handle, have discernment in that area. But on the back of your mind, keep in mind that anybody externally that's an enemy of you, you must have been in a space, right, in which you were seeing yourself as an enemy, and maybe trace that back to certain areas in your own psyche where you've been accusing yourself. And this is really, like I said, it's different if you're being threatened in reality. Like if something's going down in reality, somebody trying to steal something from you, that's not the time to be in the old Raven moment, that's so Raven moment, and be like, wait a minute, where I'm just like, because that's different. You being threatened in reality, you need to move and act in 3D, because who cares what's on people's mind? People in all kinds of spaces that ain't got shit to do with you too. But my point is, when you sitting back and you in a space where you just you in different relationships with individuals, or even at work, and it's like, say somebody come around and it's like, it's energies that just affect certain emotions in you, or things that make you think certain ways, and especially if you're a person who like always think people up to something, like just understand that you got certain traumas, you got certain insecurities that are triggered every day by individuals. And if you find yourself always looking at people outside of you and not feeling like you're connected to your people outside of you, or because that's what it comes down to, you not feeling connected to those individuals around you, you having relationship problems, even to the people you've known all your life, problems connecting with them, because that's really what I'm getting at. Like, not really threats in the world, but enemies like that, but like people who we're connected to, that we develop mentalities around, like, oh, that's an enemy, I don't like being around this person, or this person always gotta, you know what I'm saying? It's like when we start turning into that, people that we have to deal with, that we've manifested in our surroundings and our circumstance, that just come around commonly, that we have to, again, that this affects quality of life, because before you know it, you don't even realize that the people you talk to every day be the very same people you spend all your day thinking. And again, some people are very, don't even realize how deep it goes, because again, a lot of us are in families where this person in the attitude, that person in the attitude, and it's like, damn, where's the connection? And it gets very lonely, you know what I'm saying? So this is like for your relationships, for the people in your life, not just romantic, but people in your life, so you can live a life that's more connected, and you can start to actually communicate and build with individuals. And then again, it translates also to, like, if you just, again, like, say you a person on the internet, but you trying to do something in the world, you trying to make a project, or just collaborate, or just, again, coexist in community, because that's the thing right now. Like, there is no real community right now. Like, senses of community have been completely tarnished based upon just previous things we had to go through. You know what I'm saying? I think in certain generations, again, like, we can trace it all the way back to society and how things were conditioned, the push to separate into, homes, and all this other shit, like homes, and how the neighborhoods got spread out, and all these different things, right? But that yada yada yada, because the result of that, right, through just society and how it did it, was it resulted in us in being in different neighborhoods and shit with people we don't even trust. You don't even like your neighbors. You don't know shit about your neighbors. You don't care to even communicate with your neighbors. So again, this is why community is tarnished. We need to be neighbors with our soul group, with our people who resonate with us on the same vibration and frequency. And again, at the end of the day, that's going to help the children. And that's what I'm getting at. Because again, even going further, Pluto and Aquarius, they're going to need a community. You know what I'm saying? And that's way further down the line. But again, I don't know. Sometimes I be thinking of life in terms of just the future. You know what I'm saying? If we really talking about trying to change the world, we got to look at the children. We got to look at the children, and we got to look at ourselves, and we got to see, what's going down, and like kind of like just, these are just concepts for us to consider moving forward, because you need to make sure that everybody you in contact with is getting the best of you. And you need to make sure that you're healing yourself along the way, because again, like our parents, they was going through so much, but they never had time to sit down and heal themselves. And so it turned into toxic discipline. And look at what that did. Now everybody got a mental illness. You know what I'm saying? But again, like everybody diagnosed with this anxiety and these would be normal shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not, you say it'd be shit that, again, we can all avoid for the next ones, for the next kids, for the next generation and shit like that. We don't have to perpetuate the same shit that ain't been working. You know what I'm saying? And again, like the real builders out here, the individuals that's out here really trying to change shit, change the world, influence the world in a positive way. We have to take the initiative to create circumstances like that, you know what I'm saying, where even down to us building schools and stuff like that, where we build schools that cultivate a different just a different culture, a different way of living and interacting with each other. But these be the basis of community, because it comes down to people. And everybody has their own individual responsibility to heal themselves and deal with a lot of their shit themselves. So, that's on you. You know what I'm saying? That's on you type shit. But anyway, much love. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.